Laura Silverbell. In the 5 Northumbrian countries, you will scarcely find so bleak, ugly, and yet in a savage way so picturesque a moor as Dardale Moss. The moor itself spreads north, south, east, and west, a great undulating sea of black peat heath. What we may term its shores are wildly with birch, hazel, and dwarf oak. No towering mountains surround it, but here and there you have a rocky knoll rising among the trees, and many wooden promontory of the same pretty as utterly wild forests running out of its dark level. Habitations are thinly scattered in this barren region, and a full mile away from the meanest of the stone cottage of Mother Clark. Let not the southern reader who associates the ideas of comfort with the term cottage mistake. This thing is built of shingle, with low walls, its thatch is hollow, and peat smoke curls stingingly from its stunted chimney. It is worthy of its savage surroundings. The primitive neighbors remark that no rowan tree grows near, nor holly, nor bracken, and no horseshoe is nailed on the door. Not far from the branches and hazels that straggle about the rude wall of the little enclosure, on the contrary, they say, you may discover the broom and the ragwort, in which witches mysteriously delight. But this is perhaps a scandal. Malkark was for many the sage femme of this wild domain. She was renounced practice, however, for some years, and now, under the rose she dabbles, it is thought, in the black art, in which she has always been secretly skilled, tells fortunes, practices charms, and in the popular esteem is little better than a witch. Mother Clark has been away to the town of Wilderham to sell knit stockings, and returning to her rude dwelling by darkness. To her right, as far as the eye can reach, the moor stretches. The narrow track she has followed there tops the gentle upland, and at her left a sort of jungle of dwarf oak and brushwood approaches its edge. The sun is sinking blood-red in the west. His disk has touched the broad black level of the moor, and his parting beams glare athwart the gaunt figure of the old beldame, as she strides homeward, stick in hand, bringing to relief the folds of her mantle, which gleam like draperies of bronze image and lightning fire. For a few moments, the air floods with light. Tree, gorse, rock, bracken glare, and then out of it, gray twilight of evening. All is still and somber. At this hour, the simple traffic of the thinly peopled country is over. Nothing can be more solitary. From the jungle, nevertheless, through which the mists of evening are already creeping, she sees a gigantic man approaching. In that poor and primitive country robbery is a crime. She therefore has no fears for her pound of tea, her pint of gin, and 16 shillings in silver, which she is bringing home in her pocket. There is something that would have frightened another woman about this man. He is gaunt, somber, bony, dirty, dressed in a black suit, which a beggar would hardly care to pick out of the dust. This ill-looking man nodded to him as he stepped on the road. "I don't know you," she said. Again. "I never seen you in here," she exclaimed sternly. "Fine evening, Mother," he says, and holds the snuff box towards her. She widened the distance between them by a step or so, and said sternly and pale, "I have not seen to thee. Who are you, beast?" "You know Laura Silverbell?" "That's a buying 'em. Glasses nigh him than are you, she answered, looking straight before her. One name's as good as another for one that was never christened. How you know that? She asked grimly. For it is a received opinion in that part of the world that the fairies have power over those who have never been baptized. The stranger turned on her with a malignant smile. There is a young lord in love with her, the stranger says. And that will have her at your house tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. You must stick crosspins right through the candle, as you have done for many times, to bring her lover thither by day, and her fortune's made. Take this for your trouble. He extended his long finger and thumb towards her, the guinea temptingly displayed. I have naught to do with ye. Never said thee before. Get thee away. I earn nae gold to thee, and I take none. Away with thee, or I'll find out and make thee. The old woman had stopped and was quivering in every limb as she thus spoke. He looked angrily, and sulkingly turned away from the words and strode slowly towards the wood from which he had come. And as he approached it, he seemed to grow more taller and taller, and stopped into the high as a tree. I can see that there would be something to it, she said to herself. Farmer Lou must get done either Sunday. That Oppie. The old Farmer Lou was one of the sect who insists that baptism shall be at once administered, and not until the Christian candidate has attained to adult years. The girl had indeed for some time been of age, and not only according to his theory, to be baptized, but, if needed to be, married. Her story was a sad little romance. A lady who some 17 years before had come down and paid Farmer Lou for 2 rooms in the house. She told him that her husband would follow her in a fortnight, and that it was meantime delayed by business in Liverpool. And 10 days after her arrival, her baby was born. It was a sage family occasion, and on the evening of that day, the poor young mother died. No husband came, no wedding ring, they said. So, about £50 was found in her desk, which Farmer Lou, who was a kind old fellow and had lost 2 children, put in bank for the little girl, resolved to keep her until the rightful owner should step forward and claim her. I found half a dozen love letters signed Francis, calling the dead woman Laura. So Farmer Lou called the little girl Laura. Her subsequent of Silver Bell was derived from a tiny silver bell, once gilt, which was found among the poor mother's little treasures after her death, and which the child wore in a ribbon around her neck. Thus, being very pretty and merry, she grew up in the North Country farmer's daughter, and the old man, as she needed more looking after, grew older and less able to take care of her, so she was, in fact, nearly her own mistress, and did pretty much in all things that she liked. Old Moll Clark, by some caprice for which no one could account, cherished an affection for the woman, who saw her often, and paid her many a small fee in exchange for the secret indications of the future. It was too late when Mother Clark reached her home to look for a visit from Laura Silverbell. About 3 o'clock next afternoon, Mother Clark was sitting knitting with her glasses on, outside her door on the stone bench, when she saw the pretty girl mount lightly at the top of the stone to her left of the birch, against the silver stem of which she leaned her slender hand and called. "Mo, Mother Clark, are you all alone by yourself?" "Aye, Laura, lass, we can be careless and cruel if you want a word with me," says the old woman, with a mysterious nod, beckoning her stiffly with her long fingers. The girl was, assuredly, pretty enough for a lord to fall in love with. Only look at her. A profusion of brown, rippling hair, parted low in the middle of her forehead, almost touched her eyebrows, and made a pretty oval of her face by the breadth of that rich line along it. What a pretty little nose, what scarlet lips, large, dark, long, fringed eyes. Her face was transparently tinged with those clear amarillo tints, which appear in deeper eyes and her wrists and the backs of her hands. There are beautiful gypsy tints in which the sun dyes young skin so richly. The old woman's eyes on this, and her pretty figure so rounded and slender, and her shapely little feet, pierced in thick shoes that can't hide even their comely proportions, as she stands on top of the stile. But it was with the dark and Saturn aspect. Come, lass, what stand you atop of the wall for? Or folk may chance to see thee. I have a thing to tell ye, lass. She beckoned her again. I have a thing to tell thee, Lau. Come hither, said the old woman purportedly. But your man are gonna give me the creepins. Make me tremble. I wanna look into the glass of water, mind ye. The old woman smiled grimly and changed her tone. Now, honey, get thee down and let me see the canny face. And she beckoned her again. Laura Silverbell did get down and stepped lightly towards the door of the old woman's dwelling. Take this, said the girl, unfolding a piece of bacon from her apron. But I have a silver sixpence to give ye, and when I'm done, I'll give ye hymen. They entered the dark kitchen of the cottage, and the old woman stood by the door, lest their confidence should be lighted at the surprise. Before you begin, said Mother Clark, Sufferer, waitress, I tell you there's ill folk watching you. What's that old farmer do about it? He doesn't get to sir. To baptize you. If he lets Sunday next pass, I'm afraid you'll never get sprinkled no sign of the cross while there's a sky above us. Golly, exclaimed the girl, who's looking after me? A big black fellow, as high as a kipples, came out of the wood near Dead Man's Crack, just as the sun gazed down over yonder. I knew who he was, and his feet never touched the road while he made it as if he walked beside me. He wanted to give me snuff first, and I couldn't have that. And then he offered me a golden guinea, but I was no a spy. And to bring you here tonight, and cross a candle with pins to call your lover in. And he said he's a great lord, and in love with you. You refused him? Well, for thee, I did, lass, said Mother Clark. Why, it's every word true, cries the girl vehemently, starting at her feet, for she had seated herself on the great oak chest. True, lass? Come say what you mean, demanded Mother Clark, with a dark and searching gaze. Last night I was coming home from the wake of old Farmer Dykes and his wife and his daughter Nell. When he came to the stile, I bid them good night and we parted. And you came by the path alone at the night time, did you? Exclaimed old Mole Park sternly. I was not feared. I don't know why. Path lames down by the old Watts's house of the castle. Ah, well, and dothly pass it is. You'll keep indoors for a night so well, and you'll rue it. What you see? No freedom, mother, not I was feared on. You heard a voice calling your name? I heard not that it was the Dow, but the boy how in the old castle was, answered the pretty girl. I heard no said nothing Dow, but mickle that's cunning and gladsome. I heard singing and laughing a long way off. I considered and I stopped a bit to listen. Then when I walked a step or two, and there enough was a pie-bag ball field. Under the castle was, not 20 steps away, a set of grand company, silks and satins, and men with little velvet coats and with gold faces strapped all over them, and ladies with necklaces that would dazzle you, and fans big as girdles, and powdered footmen, like there was all Sheridan hid behind his coach. Only these were 10 times as grand. There was a full moon last night, said the old woman. Some brighter would blind you to look at it, said the girl. Never an ill sight, but the devil finds light, quoth the old woman. There's a running brook there. You were on this side, and they were on that. Did you try to make you cross over? Good, I didn't. Not but civility and kindness, though. But you mun let me tell it my own way. There was laughing and talking and eating and drinking out of long glasses and gold cups, seated on the grass, and music was playing, and I kicking behind the bush of all the grand doings, and they gets a dance, and says a tall fellow I didn't see before. Him on step across and dance with a young lord that's fond of love with you here. That's myself. And sure enough, I kicked him under the lashes, and Connie lad he is, and to my taste, though he was dressed in black, with sword and sash and velvet twice as fine as they sell us in that shop at Goodwin Friars, and kicking at me again from the corners of his cane. The same fellow took me to mad love with me. And his father was there, and his sister, and they came all the way from Castine Castle that night to see me. And there was the other side of the Golden Friars. Come, master, no muffin. Tell me true. What was he like? Was his grey face grim as sat a tall fellow with the wide shoulders that looked like an ill thing with black clothes amongst rags? His face was long but not real featured and darker than not a gypsy, and his clothes were black and grand and made of velvet. And he said he was a young lord himself, and he just looked like it. That would be the same fellow as said at Goodman's strike, said Bart. Good mother, how could that be? Cried the lass, with a toss of her pretty head and a smile of scorn. But the fortune teller made no answer, and the girl went on with her story. When they began to dance, continued Laura Silverbell, they urged me again, but I wouldn't step over, which was partly pride, because I wasn't dressed fine enough, and partly contrariness and something. But God, I wasn't not a foot. No, but I'm more than half wished it all the time. Well, for these 1,000 dustna across the brook. Hoity-toity, why not? Keep a ham after nightfall, and don't ye be walking by yourself by daylight, and let young some ways till after they're baptized, said Maltbark. I'm not the first to be married. Take care that marriage won't hang you in the bell ropes, said Mother Clark. Leave me alone for that. The young lord said he was my staff to love with me. He wanted me to give a Connie ring and a beautiful stone in it. But drat it, I was a wicked aspie and wouldn't take it. And he is a young lord. Lord, indeed, ye are daft and dreaming. These fine folk, what are they? I tell ye, darbies and fairies, and if they don't do ye as you bid, they'll take ye, and you'll never get out of their hands again while grass grows, said the old grimly. Out with it, replies the young girl patiently. Who's daft and dreaming new? I'd been dead with fear if 'twas such a thing. I couldn't be. I always lonesome and bonny and shapely. Well, and what do you want me on, lass? Asked the old woman sharply. I want to know, here's sixpence, what I should do, said the young lass. It'd be a pity to lose such a morrow, eh? Say your prayers, lass, I can't help ye, says the old woman darkly. If you go with the people, you'll never come back. You might talk with them and weep with them, no eat with them and drink with them, no take a pin's worth by way of a gift from them. Mark well what I say, or you're lost. The girl looked down, plainly much vexed. The old woman stared at her with a mysterious frown steadily for a few seconds. Tell me, lass, and tell me true. Are you in love with that lad? What should I? Said the girl with a careless toss of her hair, blushing up with her red temples. I see how it is, said the old woman with a groan, and repeated the words, sadly thinking, walking up the doorstep or two, and looked jealously around. The lass is witched! The lass is witched! Did you see him since? Asked Mother Clark, returning. The girl was still embarrassed, and now she spoke in a lower tone and seemed subdued. I thought I saw him as I came here, walking beside me among the trees, but I can say it was only the trees themselves that like was running one behind another as I walked on. I can tell you now, lass, what I told you before, answered the old woman remonstratively. Get your ham, and don't delay on the way, and say your prayers as you go, and let none but good thoughts come to you. Put ne'er a foot aside the store stand again until you get to be christened, and get that done next Sunday. With this charge, given with grisly earnestness, she saw over the stone, stood upon it watching her retreat, till the trees quite hid her path of view. The sky grew cloudy with thunders, and the air darkened rapidly as the girl, fret little by Mama Clark's view of the case, walked homeward on the lonely path of trees. A black cat, which had walked close by her, for these creatures sometimes take a ramble in search of prey among the woods and thickets, crept from under the hollow of an oak, and again was with her. It seemed to grow bigger and bigger as the darkness deepened, and its green eyes glared as large as half-pennies, with her affrighted vision of the thunder booming along the heights of the low-wooded road. She tried to drive it away, but it growled softly, and set its way back up, as if it would spring it. Finally, it skipped into a tree, where they grew thickest at each side of her path, and accompanied her high overhead, hopping from bough to bough, as if meditating to pounce upon her shoulders. Her fancy being full of strange thoughts, she was frightened, and she fancied that it was haunting her steps, destined to undergo some hideous transformation the moment she ceased to guard her path with prayers. She was frightened for a while after she got home. Dark looks of Mother Carp were always before her eyes, and secret dread prevented her from passing the threshold of her home again that night. The next day it was different. She got rid of the awe in which Mother and Cake had inspired her. She could not go into the dull, dark-featured lord in the black velvet dress out of her head. He had taken her fancy, and was growing in love with her. She could think, nothing else. Bessie Hannock, a neighbor's daughter, came to see her that day, and proposed to walk towards the ruins of Harth Castle to gather blaeberries. So off the two girls went together. In the thicket, along the slopes of the ivied walls of Harworth Castle, the companions began to fill their baskets. Hours passed, the sun was sinking near the west, and Lara Silverbell had not come. Over the hatch of the farmhouse door, the maids leaned over, stretched out necks, watching for the sign of the girl's return, wondering, as the shadows lengthened, what had become of her. At last, just as the rosy sunset gilding began to spread the landscape, Bessie Hannock, weeping into her apron, made her appearance without her companion. Her account of their adventures was curious. I will relate the substance of it more connectedly than her agitation would allow her to give it, and without the disguise of rude Northumbrian dialect. The girl said that as they got along together of the brook that bounds at Pine Mag, she saw suddenly a very tall, big-boned man with an ill-favored, besmirched face, and dressed in worn, rusty black, standing on the other side of the stream. She was frightened, while looking at his dirty, wicked, starved figure. Laura Silverbell touched her, gazing at the same tall scarecrow, with a countenance full of confusion, even rapture. She was peeping through the bush behind which he stood. With a sign she said, "This nigh comely lad, a boy, see this bonny velvet clothes, sword and sash, that's a lord, I can tell ye, and I will know who he foes, who he loves, and who he'd wed." Bessie Hancock thought her companion daft. "See how lovesome he looks," whispered Laura. Bessie again looked and saw him gazing at her companion with a magnificent smile, and at the same time he beckoned her to approach. "Never go not near him, he'll wring thy neck," gasped Bessie, bringing her, but she saw Laura step forward with a look of beautiful bashfulness and joy. She took the hand he stretched across the stream, more for love of the hand than any need of help. And the moment was crossed at his side, and his long arm about her waist. Fare thee well, Bunny. I've gained my ways, she called, leaning her head against his shoulder. Tell good Fighter Lou I'm gained my ways to be happy, and maybe, at long last, I'll see him again. With a farewell wave of her hand, she went away with her dismal partner, and Laura Silverbell was never more seen at home, or among the commons or the wigwams, the bonny fields and bosky hollows, by Valentine's. Bessie Hannock followed them for a time. She crossed the brook as though they seemed to move slowly enough, and she was obliged to run to keep them in view. She was 9 times called for them continually. Come back, Bonnie Laurie! Till, getting over a bank, she was met by a white-faced old man, and so frightened was she that she thought she had fainted outright. At all events, she did not come home to herself until the birds were singing their vespers in the amber night of twilight. No trace of the direction of the girl's flight was ever discovered. Weeks and months passed, and more than a year. At the end of that time, one of Moll Clark's goats died. She suspected by the hideous practices of a rival witch who lived far in the Dardale Moss. All alone in her stone cabin, the old woman had prepared her charm to ascertain the author of her misfortune. The heart of the dead animal, stuck all over with pins, was burnt in the fire, the windows, doors, and every other aperture of the house being first carefully stopped. After the heart, thus prepared with suitable incantations, is consumed by the fire, the first person who comes to the door or passes by it is the offending magician. Mother Kirk repeated these lonely rites at night. It was a dark night, with a glimmer of the stars only, and a melancholy night wind as soothing and slow to scattered winds swept around. After a long and dead silence, there came a heavy thump at the door, and a deep voice called her by name. She was startled, for she expected no man's voice. Peeping from the window, she saw, in the dim light, a coach, 4 horses, with gold-laced footmen and coachmen in wig and cocked hats, turned out as if for a state occasion. She unbarred the door, and a tall gentleman dressed in black, waiting at the threshold, entreated her, as the only femme sage within reach, to come to the coach and to attend Lady Lairdale, who was about to give birth to a baby, promising her a handsome payment. Lady Lairdale, she had never heard of her. How far away is it? 12 miles, the old road to Fairies. Her avarice was roused, and she steps into the coach. The footman claps the door. The glass jingles with the sound of a laugh. The tall, dark-faced gentleman in black, seeing opposites, at a furious pace, it turned out to the road to the narrower, dark, with thicker and loftier forests than she was accustomed to. She grows anxious, for she knows every road and bypath of the county road she has never seen from this one. He encourages her. The moon has risen above the edge of the horizon. She sees the noble old castle. Its summit of tower, watchtower, and battlements glimmers faintly in the moonlight. This was their destination. She feels a sudden, all but overpowered by sleep. For although she nods, she is quite conscious of a continued motion, which has become even rougher. She makes an effort and rouses herself. What has become of the coach, the castle, the servants? Nothing but a strange force remains the same. She's jolted along the rude hurdle, seated on rushes, and a tall, big-boned man in rags sits in front, kicking with his heel the ill-favored beast that pulls him along, every bone of which sticks out, and holding the halter which serves for reins. They stop at the door of a miserable building, blue stone, with a thatch so sunk and rotten that the roof tree couples protrude from crooked corners, like the bones of a wretched horse, with enormous head and ears that drag them to the door. The long, gaunt man gets down, his sinister face grim like his hands. At the same grimy giant who had accosted her on the lonely road near Dead Man's Crike, but she feels that she must go through with it now. She follows him into the house. 2 rushlights were burning in a large and miserable room. Of course, ragged bed lay a woman groaning piteously. "That is Lady Dardale," said the gaunt dark man, who began to stride up and down, rolling his head, stamping furiously and thumping one hand on the palm of the other, talking and laughing at the corners where there was no one visible to hear her answer. Old Mole Clark recognized the starved creature who lay in the bed, all dark now and grimy as the man, looking as though she has never in her life washed hands or face, once blithe, pretty, large. The hideous being who was her mate continued in the same odd fluctuations of fury, grief, and merriment, and whenever she uttered a groan, he parried it with another, as Mother Cartage thoughts, etc. in derision. At length he strode into another room and banged the door after him. In due time the poor woman's pains were over and a daughter was born. Such an imp with long pointed ears, flat nose, and enormous restless eyes and mouth. Consistently began to yell and talk in some unknown language, at the noise of which the father looked into the room and told the sage femme that she would not go unrewarded. The sick woman seized the moment of his absence to say in the ear, "If you had not come for work tonight, he would not have fetched you. Take no more than your rightful fee, or he'll keep you here." At this moment he returned with a bag of gold and silver coins, which he emptied on the table and told her to help herself. She took 4 shillings, which was her primitive fee, neither more nor less, and all his urgency could not prevail with her to take a farthing more. He looked so terrible at her refusal that she rushed out the door, and she ran after him. "You'll take your money with you!" He snatched at the bag, still half full, and flung it at her. It lighted on her shoulder, and partly from the blow, partly from the terror, she fell to the ground. And when she came to herself, it was morning, and she was lying across her own doorstep. It is said that she never more foretold or practiced spells, and though all that happened 60 years ago or more, our Silver Bell, wise folk think, is still living, and will continue to do so to the day of doom.